Asheesh, good morning.
Morning, Jeff. How are you, mate?
Not too bad. Welcome to the Medium Podcast. How's the start of the week been treating you?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. My wife's down with COVID, so we're kind
Oh,
of balancing that. But other than
nasty.
that, life's pretty normal. Yep, yep.
Good.
The new
Her, sy-
normal.
her symptoms are not severe or asymptomatic or
Yeah, no, she's had a little bit. The spicy cough. So she's got a bit of a cough and a bit of a fever over the weekend, but she's on the mend, so that's good.
okay, that's the main thing, eh?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
had a bit of a quick chat about how we met. I think it's been about 15 years, I would say. Back in uni
yeah,
days, I met
yeah.
Sanjay, yourself. Is that correct? Or
Yeah. So a common friend who I went to school with and you went to uni with, and then I think cross paths. I don't know where we first met, but meeting a uni dinner and a drink out. I think. Yeah.
I think there's been many adventures in between.
Yeah.
I think we better leave that on the personal front
Yeah.
away from the podcast because I
Yeah.
think we went through a lot of different things. Asheesh, tell me, how is the balance between, hitting it professionally, succeeding, and obviously balancing that with your very young family? How's it coming along?
Yeah. I think probably the answer will probably change day to day. So I don't think I get it right all the time. But I think you got to find what works for you, right? I think it's hard to just say, okay, family first, and family trumps everything, because that is the truth. But it's probably not that simple to say it that way. I think firstly, one thing I've always realized is you spend more time working than you do with your family, right? So, you're at work 40 hours plus commute, all those things, right? You don't actually get that many hours with your wife and kids every week. So,
Very true.
it's a bit scary when you think of it that way. But
Mm,
so, and then on top of that, I think my wife and I are big believers that you have to be happy at work to be happy at home, right? So if you're not, if you really hate your job,
well said.
if you're trudging out the door, and you're stressed, and you're fighting at work, well, maybe just the two of us, we're not good at compartmentalizing that and then walking in the door and leaving everything at work. So I think being fulfilled outside the family with friends and work makes us better people to come back into the family, and kind of interact with each other in a loving way. And then I think the last bit of a mundane reality is that you need, money makes the world go round, right? So you have to work. We don't we're not lucky enough to not have to work. So you've got bills to pay, school fees, car rego, mortgage in Sydney, all of these things, right? So
I think the mortgage in Sydney is probably another topic altogether. We'll save that
yeah,
for podcast two.
we'll save that for another podcast. Yeah. So in order to be able to do all of that, the reality is in this day and age, you kind of need to work, and to work in a way that kind of fulfills your life in another way. So I think everything I do is for my wife and kids, and to kind of make sure that they're we as a family are provided for, but it's important that you get the work part right. Absolutely.
Very interesting point about being happy at work means that when you do bring it back home, you are actually a happier individual, and when you come home, you're in a more positive state than as opposed to someone who hates it, soul crushing. It just inevitably leads into the family office, so to speak, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There've been periods of my life where I've not been happy at work, and I've not been a great person at home. Or really, if I push it too hard at work, I think I was in a job where the kids were young and I was working crazy hours. And what that meant was, I'd work crazy hours during the week, and then I'd sleep it off on Saturday, Sunday. So I wasn't getting out of bed till 9, 10 on a Saturday and Sunday. So that just meant I even had less time, with the kids on the weekend. And so, I think, the pressure and stuff at work also impacts the time and, your own physical exhaustion in order to spend with your family.
Because if you're clocking 10, 11, 12 hours days, for example, you're absolutely knackered on the weekend, eh?
Yeah, these were probably 17, 18-hour days at times. And I was just not myself on the weekend. I was a zombie.
And you made a good point about whether Claire and yourself can sort of compartmentalize it, so to speak, in a sense of that's work, we come home, that's family. Is that how you guys approach it, or you're sort of seeing it a bit muddled?
No, I think it has to be muddled. I think for both Claire and I, when we walk in the door, there's a decompressing time. That first 20 minutes, half an hour, where you've got to have a shower, whatever your little routine when you walk in the door. I think if you've had a really shocking day and you come in, and the kids don't realize that. Kids, they're just going to run at you and
they want to see daddy.
Get past that. They've missed you too. So it is hard, but invariably, I have a longer commute, so at least during my commute I try and decompress. But if you catch a bus in Sydney, that's probably stressing you out even more as well. So you get home and get off the bus, you battle the bus, and then after that you've got to try and decompress as well.
Because in addition to getting to the office where you need to be on your A game, when you come home, you also going to need to be on your A game, but obviously in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. It was probably harder during lockdown and homeschooling, because you're in and out of calls and the kids are here, and you're just kind of all through the day, you're balancing time, but you're kind of shifting in and out of work mode the whole time. And that those transitions are really fast, as opposed to kind of you leave the house, you go through your routine, and you go have your coffee before you go to work, and all those transitions are there. You kind of build those into your day to get yourself ready. When I was working, on days I work from home, I've got a 1-minute commute, right, or 20-second commute. So you don't have those same routines to get yourself in and out of work mode.
Interesting. And how do you sort of decompress after a long day?
I try and do exercise for me. Claire once told me ages ago, motion processes emotion.
Motion processes emotion. Lovely.
Yeah. So that's a good one. I try and on my commute back from the office, try and go for a run. Again, if you're stuck in traffic, if you're catching a bus for 40 minutes, my run is probably about 50 minutes. So I've gotten my exercise and my commute out in the same sort of time. And, that's some great time. Try not to listen to music, just try and
just focus on the road.
Focus on the road, and then just let your mind wander, right? So, for me, I see that in my son as well. I think that time just by yourself, decompressing your brain, letting it all compartmentalize, unpack the day, it just, then I kind of come back home and I'm in a much better state to kind of deal with.
Oh, wow. So you actually do the run after you finish work. So when you get home, you decompress. So when you get through the door, you're feeling in a much better state.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm probably, sweaty and stinky. So that gives me 5 minutes when I'm in the house to have a shower. And then that way no one wants to come near me too much. So then
because you're on afterwards.
you get that 10 minutes to have a shower, and then you're back ready to go.
It sounds very clockwork in a way, but it has to be, doesn't it?
I know. We're going away in 2 weeks. Claire and I and our parents-in-law are looking after the kids, and we wrote down the list of what we do every week, and it kind of is regimented, and kind of this is what happens at this time of day. But I think with 2 kids that go to different schools, Claire works, I work, activities after school, it's just all life has to be a bit clockwork to make it all work at the moment.
So do you still believe in work-life balance, or is it very much work-life integration now? Or is there something else?
I think it's integration. I don't think balance works for us. I don't think, yeah, I think we've just given up trying to find balance, right? Because where do you draw that line? What do you call balance? I think integration and making sure we have time and being present with the kids, and making sure that you make sure that life is integrated into work. So Tuesdays, I'll work a shorter day, make sure I pick up the kids, spend time with the kids, take my son to soccer, and then also just making sure that we've got time for the kids through the week as well. So making sure life is integrated into, because I don't think you'll ever find the perfect balance. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, Claire and I really ever bought into the balance, because I think you're always searching for something that's not there.
Have you had time for yourself?
Yeah, I think
really a good 1 hour, 2 hours, for example, maybe on a Sunday morning, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's just you. Do you have that?
Yeah, I've built it into my life now. So I used to be a really bad coffee addict, right? Like drinking way too much coffee. And then I went to a retreat earlier in the year, and one of the things that they said was, make sure if you're going to have coffee, enjoy it, right? So for me, coffee is a bit of a passion, and I can just sit there drinking coffee all day. But I limit myself to 2 coffees a day. But the reason I say it is I now don't drink takeaway coffee, right? Because takeaway coffee, you're not consciously drinking it.
You're just like, boom.
You're just bang. You're doing something and you're just drinking your coffee, and you're just giving yourself a caffeine hit, without actually enjoying what you're doing. So
Good point.
When I sit and when I have a coffee, I make a point. I have it in. I like good coffee, so I'll go sit down and then enjoy it. For me, Saturdays, Sundays, I'll duck out of the house for a bit.
Nice. By yourself or?
By myself,
and
make sure I have time for that coffee, and sit down and just enjoy it. And that time, I need that, because I'm an introvert underneath it all, so I need that time by myself to kind of decompress. So that time. And then before work, I start early. I start at 5:30. I spend an hour just by myself at my desk here, and prepare for the day. And then invariably also before work, most days I'll have a coffee by myself for a good 15-20 minutes to get going. So I try
and that's quality time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the early starts for me, I think in my job, I get booked into a lot of meetings, and then so I'll find that, 9 till 5 is just meetings, and I have no time to really do my own work and do my own thinking. I've only started this about 6 months ago, but having that time, that hour to myself every day, helps me prioritize, helps me think about what I want to do, and just helps me be much more considered in what I do.
Yeah, I wake up ridiculously early on the weekend just to get at least, at a minimum, 1 hour to myself.
Yeah. My son is up early, so I've given up trying to get up earlier than him. So I just have to duck out. That's the only way to do it.
Has to be done, right? So you mentioned Claire and yourself making sure that you guys are present for your kids.
Yeah.
Do you have that? Or does your mind sort of wander? It's natural, right?
Yeah, look, we went to a parenting course, and they said, just never aim for perfection. 66%, 67%, 2/3 of the time, that's all you got to strive for. And so I think 2/3 of the time we probably do it. So look, I think the hardest part is, for me personally, is my phone, that stops me being present.
Your phone.
My phone, my handheld, so having my phone in my hand, and, it's easy to make an excuse of, there's just this email, there's just
this one time.
just this call. I've just got to take this call. I've just got to, respond to this Slack, respond to this email. I've just got this meeting. So, it's very easy to fall into that habit. And then, 1 minute you're checking your Slack, the next, you're on Instagram, in front of your kids and not being present. So, it's not an easy thing to do, but, we have a rule of no phones at the table.
Nice.
So, nothing there. And then just little things like, we don't charge our phones by bed anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
nice switch.
So charge the phone in the lounge room, bought an old school, alarm clock because I had made the excuse that I needed an alarm. So I bought an alarm clock and just really, trying to put limits, or kind of set boundaries around, when I use my phone and, making sure, before school on a Tuesday, I'll have a coffee with my daughter.
Nice.
So, make sure that when I get out of the car to have that coffee, I'll leave my phone in the car. So I don't, you don't need that phone with you, because otherwise, again, there's just that temptation to quickly, instead of just looking at the person opposite you, because, the thing about a 4-year-old is she's always just staring at you. She's always looking for, that connection and that interaction. But if dad
is basically on this the whole time, then
then it breaks your heart. So yeah, I think definitely
good reminder.
Trying to make sure that you be present. So don't do that, and then making sure, again, Claire and I, you want to have an adult conversation, but the kids are around, right? So how do you do that, right? So how do you balance that conversation and balance that relationship with?
How do you do that? Because my wife and I have that same challenge as well.
Yeah, I think we went to another parenting course where they kind of said, look, you don't actually need, just because a child wants your attention doesn't mean you have to give it to them right away, right? You don't want to be just subservient to your kid, because that's not natural for them either. They can't just expect to walk into any conversation and shut a conversation down and take over it, right? But so just making sure that you kind of say, okay, look, mom and dad are having a conversation. We're going to be 5 minutes. Give us 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll have, we'll have the conversation with you, right? So I think being able to do that and not just allow that, because that then means you and Claire can finish off your conversation properly, instead of just always, sorry, not you and Claire. Hopefully you and Claire aren't having that many conversations. Me and Claire can finish that, and then, but I think the key thing is making sure you remember, and that's probably where we don't remember, we fail. Make sure you remember to go back to the kid, right? You say, okay, park it, but then it's on you.
Got to come back.
You've got to come back to them.
Good
if you
point.
don't come back to them,
Good point.
then you just let them down and you made a promise. So I just started this thing a couple of weeks ago of getting my son to get, we got one of those Google Assistants at home. So he sets a timer on that Google Assistant. So at least that helps me remember. He thinks it's for him, but it's more for me to help me remember.
Sorry, how does that work? Like your son?
I'll say, give me 5 minutes, and he'll go set a 5-minute timer on the Google. So he'll just say, hey, Google, set a 5-minute timer. So when that 5-minute timer goes, it also helps him not come and interrupt us within 5 minutes, because he's got no idea of time. So if you say, give me 5 minutes, minute later, he's coming back saying, are you done with that conversation? I want to ask you a question again, right? So if you do need 5 minutes, then at least the timer will help him realize, okay, the timer hasn't gone off yet. Now I've heard him lately go back and ask how long left on the timer. So at least now Google's doing it. I'm outsourcing some of that to Google.
What about an old school clock that has the hands? That's what my wife and I do.
I think with my older one that works. With my younger one, she's only 4, so she's not telling time yet. And again, it means you have to educate them on, okay, the time is this now, in 5 minutes when it's this time. So if you can just say that and they can go, do that, then again, it gives you that time to finish that conversation.
Got it. It's a great initiative that you're going to these parenting courses. Good on you guys, yeah?
I'll take 0% of the credit, and I'll give that 100% to Claire. So Claire, yeah, I think we had the circle of security, I think.
I did that too.
Yeah, I highly recommend that one. That was
Brilliant.
that was a great one. And we've taken a lot of the principles out of that. And I think the other one was conscious parenting, which is a great one. And something that Claire and I really believe in.
Great initiative, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to. The good thing about circle of security is that's where we learn. Okay, you don't have to be perfect 100% of the time, right?
Good point.
Being a parent is 2/3 of the time. More often than not, you're making the right decision, but you're gonna screw up. So it's okay.
And with the circle of security, it's about sort of you're sort of the home base.
Yeah.
Your son and daughter will explore.
Yeah.
And then come back to you.
Yeah.
And you just got to make sure you're there to receive them when they come back. It's a great concept, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, clearly as they grow up, that phase of going out and coming back just, but I think even if you look at your own life, you're always at some stage coming back to your parents, in some shape.
Good on you. So, was that in person or was that online?
This was a few years ago, so it was in person. Yeah, we did that one first, pre-pandemic.
Good on you. Well done.
Yeah.
And getting back to having that alone time and having that conversation with Claire, as you as a husband, and obviously with a wife, excluding the kids, let's park them for the time being, do you guys maintain some sort of date night and whatnot? Because your kids are a bit older than mine. Yeah. Do you guys have that sort of, weekly date night thing or weekly lunch, so to speak, where it's just literally just you guys and there's no Google Assistant in the background?
Yeah, look, not at the moment, but we did have the weekly date night, which was amazing because the kids would be with my parents one night a week, I think we started it off more because I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and that was a really cherished memory for me, and I loved my relationship with my grandparents, and I was probably a little bit spoiled by them, but I think it's also it was great to village raises a family, right? So as a child, right? So I think we love that idea, but then we realized, wow, we get a night to ourselves a week, and we had that for 6 years, which was amazing. But now just for the next couple of terms, we don't have that. But one thing that Claire's been big on is putting the kids to bed early, so they go to bed around 7:30. So that gives us a couple of hours every night to just be ourselves. And so one thing that we did during lockdown, which was great, was every Friday night we'll have a cheese platter out on the deck, and kind of just the two of us maybe have a drink as well. So we're just saying that earlier this week. Actually, we're going to start doing that again on a Friday night. Just post lockdown, everyone's doing stuff on a Friday night, so we've been out I've been out the last few Fridays, but we're going to start that again, just having that little tradition, just to have a bit of a chat, no TV, no nothing, just
it's good, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's interesting is that you and I chatting, unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you see it, sometimes you do need to go, hey, we're chatting at 9:30 this morning, to create that time. And this is what I enjoy, having these conversations.
So look, one thing that we've done on top of that is on a Sunday we've made an admin hour.
Hour, okay, yeah, so, interesting.
So just where we sort out, I think both of us have busy schedules, and the kids have busy schedules. So I think we realized if we just try to wing it through the week, it doesn't work. So literally we'll sit down for an hour and be like, okay, what are the meals? Like, who's cooking what day? What day are you out? Days are you out? Am I traveling? Is she out for dinner or whatever, just so we know where everyone is, and then we can kind of we can attack the week knowing that everything's kind of sorted. Any admin things to do, any things that need to be fixed up around the house, what days the cleaner coming, all of those things, just to make it much easier.
So let me guess, you've also got the shared calendar going on as well, I'm guessing.
We have a shared calendar, yeah. So no, I think it just
you need it.
It's a symptom of the times, really. Yeah.
Interesting. And getting back to earlier on in the conversation, we talked about obviously, the world does revolve around money. A big part of your motivation, in a way, is your wife and kids. But personally, for yourself, professionally, what does that mean to you to achieve?
Yeah, I think my my parents came to Australia to give us a better life, right? They had a pretty good life in India and kind of a very content with life, but I think they realized, you know, if they didn't come to Australia, my sister and I would probably get lost. Unless you got the best, unis or whatever in India, you're kind of destined for, not particularly the best life. So they kind of thought, okay, we can come to Australia. I suspect they were probably more worried about me than my sister. I think my sister, they knew she'll do good wherever she is. I think they were a bit worried that if I get into the wrong crowd, if I just mucked around during school, which I did a bit in Australia, but I wouldn't really succeed after that. So I think they kind of thought, okay, we'll come to a place like Australia and then, give the kids opportunity. And that probably, that always comes, I take that with me, that obviously my parents gave up a lot to kind of give me and my family a better life. So I think that part of, okay, well, Indians are also very good at guilt. So, we kind of, through school and uni, you've kind of got that guilt of, okay, I better make the most of this opportunity. So kind of that probably pushed me through school and uni a bit. And then after that, I think just the sense of wanting to give 100%. I played a lot of sport during school, and that's the thing that's expected of you. You kind of, you go hard. You kind of leave everything out in the field, and probably take that approach to work. Of if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here. I'm going to give it my all.
Nothing half-assed.
No, nothing half-assed. I'm actually not very good at coasting. I think I've probably left a couple of jobs where I'm like, I'm just, I'm not bored here. I've done the heavy lifting to get it to a good stage. And I kind of see that someone else can actually manage this period and I can go fix another problem. And that's probably where, I like kind of challenging myself and kind of, fixing problems really.
So it's very much the family upbringing. If you don't mind me asking, did your parents go to university too, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. So it's very much ingrained in you that, we've got to work hard, we've got to put in the effort, and you sort of combine that with the need, not maybe needs the wrong word, but to feel challenged in your day to day. And when you combine that, it produces you. Now, I think for you, Asheesh, you've always been quite a naturally talented guy. You've also been very fit. I think that's a testament to the hard work you put in, yeah? Or
yeah, look, I think my parents didn't say, like, I think a lot of Indian parents will say you have to be a doctor or an engineer, right? Or an accountant or a lawyer. My parents never said that. Well, they've ended up with a lawyer and an accountant, right? So they've they've kind of lucked onto that, but they never said you have to do anything. I think even like my dad, was a priest, but he gave he put his whole heart and soul into that, right? And he really
he gave it all.
He gave it his all, right? And same with my mum. When she works part-time now, but when she works, she's fully into it, right? And so I guess it's not just you have to do these certain things. It's whatever you do, you do that. I've forgotten the rest of the question.
Oh no, it was just sort of more of a comment about how your mum and dad have really instilled these strong values of just simple hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something I do take from them. I think in some ways I do things very differently to what my parents have done, and I think my relationship with my kids is probably different to kind of my relationship with them.
Interesting.
I think absolutely with the work stuff, 100%.
What do you mean different? That's interesting in terms of the parenting style, fundamentally, or?
Yeah, like, I think the thing I need to keep remembering is, my parents had to deal with moving. Well, firstly, I'll say my mum will probably listen to this. She has a way of finding stuff that I do and Googling it. So, my mum, when you listen to this, but my parents had to deal with moving country, right? So they came from, fairly conservative India to very white middle class Australia, and kind of in the 90s, and there weren't too many immigrants and stuff like that where I grew up. So it was a very they had to deal with that, absolutely, and that couldn't have been easy. My wife and I tried to move to the US, and 6 months in we hated it and came back home. So I could only imagine
the challenges,
the challenges that they went through. But I think I think mum and dad always say this. They weren't very consistent with my sister and I. Like they'll make a stance of like, okay, you have to be home by midnight, and then all of a sudden, we're in by 1 or 2. There was not. They'll make a big deal about the midnight, but then they wouldn't always necessarily follow through. So I think I think my wife's better at it than I, but always being very consistent with how when we're dealing with our kids. But then I think the other bit is just the things that technology lets us do today that my dad wouldn't have been able to do. So my dad, we're living near Liverpool, and my dad worked in Chatswood, right? So that's an hour and a half each way commute, and if you're starting at 9, that means you're leaving home at 7:30.
Probably earlier, right? You got to have
7:30.
breakfast, look after, have a chat to my son.
Yeah. So and then you're back home by 7, right? So and there was no FaceTime. Even if I'm working late, my kids can FaceTime me and check in. Or if I'm on the train or on the bus when they're going to bed, we can kind of have check-ins through the day, or if they're with my mum, she'll FaceTime us. And so we'd have those, I have those interactions with my kids, and, I can work from home, right? So a couple of days a week, I work from home. I do the pickup, I do the drop off, I, coach my son's soccer team. I can do all those things because technology's moved in that direction. So, I think just being able to spend time with them and be more part of their lives, because just technology's, allowed it. And then I think probably the other bit is, Indians, just being Indians, very risk averse. If you see your kid, jumping on a trampoline, oh no, don't do that, you're going to hurt yourself. Don't play rugby because you're going to break your leg. Like, I got approached a few times to play rugby at school, and my dad was like, no, you're not playing rugby, you're going to hurt yourself, right? And so I think I think we're much more inclined to let our kids take risks, and I think that is, you want them to take the risk, learn their lessons early, and then that way, by the time they get to their teens, they're not doing really stupid things because they've learned their lessons early. I think if you don't give your kids alcohol, I'm not going to give them now, but like, if you wait till they're 18 or 20, 25 before you let them start drinking, it's too late, and then they feel like they're missing out and they overcompensate, right? So you let them make small mistakes, let them take some risks, and then hopefully they're set up to kind of tackle the big world on their own.
And that sort of belief in allowing your kids to take a risk, that's very much consistent with Claire in terms of how she sees it too, or?
Oh, she's more of a risk taker than me. Yeah, absolutely. So she loves a bit of adrenaline and a bit of a thrill. So she's like, oh, that's fine. And she grew up in the country, so wild animals and all that, she'll be right. Like, let them go. And so sometimes you're like, oh, that's a bit full on.
You sort of need that in a relationship, don't you? You
absolutely. Yeah. So she brings out some of that in me.
Good. Nice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you mentioned about technology. Obviously, the world has changed. You can coach your son's soccer team. You can do a meeting on your phone. You can check your email, right? But like what you said, you need to then have that discipline of going, you know what, bedtime, I'm going to charge it outside. My phone stays in a car when I have that coffee with my daughter. Just as a side point on Slack, I'm just sort of curious to see your thoughts on that. What do you think of the tool? Like for me, to give you a bit of an example, that scared me sometimes because it's just constantly on.
Yeah, I think it's like obviously Slack has a place, right? And
It
it's
does.
a great tool, and it's through lockdown, it's allowing us to do a lot of things, which we weren't able to do previously, and so I think absolutely it has a place, but I think there's a there are a couple of watch outs, right? And I think one's a kind of a bit more of a personal one, and one's more actually a more, putting my CEO hat on, probably a bit of a risk. I think on a personal level, like it is hard to, because everyone's on. Yesterday I messaged someone because I was just doing my work. Sorry, on Sunday I was doing a bit of stuff, and I was catching up on some stuff, and so I just messaged someone in my team something on Slack, because that's how we communicate, right?
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday, right? But then she felt she had to respond that day because she was on too, right? And because she's got her Slack notifications on. But in 5 years ago, I would have just sent her an email, and she would have waited till Monday. And so, I've inconvenienced her, and I even said, look, don't read this till Monday. But people feel like they have to, so it kind of interrupts people's lives, and and maybe that is work-life integration, but at the same time, I think people need to be better at
respecting boundaries in a sense.
Boundaries, exactly, right. I think the other danger with Slack and talking more from a business communication side is leaving time, Slack and posting something on a Slack channel or just doing something on Slack isn't always the best way to communicate something, right? And I think a lot of I've been in other companies where there are just a million Slack channels, and you just put stuff out there and you think you're communicating to the business, but because there are so many different Slack channels and so much, it just becomes noise, right? So I think the challenge to use Slack properly is making sure that you're still communicating effectively, and that people can absorb the stuff that you're communicating through those things. So yes, you can put it on a Slack channel. Yes, it can be there to be referred to later. But you absolutely have to follow it up in a meeting. You have to, maybe you have to send an email as well. Maybe you need to have some video content. You can't just say, okay, I'll put it in Slack. Everyone in the company knows about it. That's a real, I think that's a danger when I've seen companies do that.
It's interesting how you recognize that when you did use Slack yesterday to ping one of your team members, and then afterwards you realize, I've actually inconvenienced her. So what made you Slack in the first place?
I was responding to her Slack from Friday, so it was there. And then I think the company and last couple of companies I've been in, the predominant communication tool is Slack. So we do use Slack more than email or other channels. So I think my first inkling was just I'll just Slack up.
It's sort of quite second nature sometimes, eh?
Yeah.
But it's great that you recognize it, eh?
Yeah. I think there's also, I think when you get to certain positions, you have to realize that people go, oh no, the CEO's messaged me, I've got to respond, right? If it's a Sunday, right? You may not mean it, you may just
it's sort of unconscious, and unfortunately.
Yeah, so you kind of just go, okay, I'll just message. I'm just a person. Like I think you just think of yourself as the person, but then on the other side they're going, oh, the CEO just messaged me, I have to respond, right? I have to respond straight away, and so there's that pressure on them that comes because they can't see you, they don't know your tone, they don't know, you're not there to say, hey, look at this tomorrow. Like if I saw her at the cafe, I'd say, hey, here's that work. Get back to me tomorrow. On Slack, you don't have the tone, you don't have the ability to have that conversation around it. It's just, communicating behind a wall.
The irony is that we'll talk about this as well. The irony is that as a result of your title, it's unfortunate that it's inherent that when you do give someone work, they're going to think, you know what? we've got Asheesh here. He's the CEO of an organization. We need to get it done for him.
Yeah, that's, you know,
Yeah.
it really annoys me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I think it gets, you know, and I'm really trying to stamp it out of my current organization, and the last business I was in, people started to get it. But, you know, I think it's like, you know, I probably struggled because I'd go to meetings and, you know, I'd try and brainstorm. I'll just come up with an idea, right? And, you know, one of the first couple of ideas that I had in the business I'm in currently, people just went off and did it, right? And then, you know, they failed. And then I said, oh, okay, why did it fail? And they're like, yeah, we knew it was going to happen because we'd already done it last year. So, well, why don't you tell me that it failed, right? He's like, well, you wanted us to do it. I'm like, yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like, just because I have an idea doesn't make it right. Like, I'm just a guy, right? You know, I can have an idea.
You got to tell me the truth.
You got to tell me the truth, right? So we've kind of been going through that journey here of like, okay, you know, and one of our values is, you know, be courageous enough to be honest, right? And so, okay, well, you know, just because I come up with something, you know, don't just say no, don't necessarily say, no, we did it, it failed last time, right? But say, well, this is what we learned last time, right? How do we take that idea and make it better, right? So, you know, but don't just sit there and say, you know, CEO says I have to do it, I'm going to do it, just because, even though I think
about it, critically analyze
absolutely
how we can approach it.
Yeah. And it also allows me the space to be myself, right? And, you know,
You've always been very humble
in
your approach. You've always been very humble in your approach.
Yeah, but I also, like, I guess I don't want to go into meetings and be like, well, I can't say anything because if I try and be creative, everyone's just going to go do the first thing, right, that I said, right? So, because I'm a big believer in kind of people disagreeing and finding a middle ground that is actually better than two people's, you know, individual ideas. But if people aren't willing to share their ideas and the other person receive it in some way and iterate on it, you can't do that, right? So I don't want an environment where I have to be very guarded in what I say. I want to be able to be free to share my ideas, and hopefully that allows other people to be free. And then, you know, once ideas start flowing, yeah, you're onto something.
Interesting. And you're naturally wearing the shirt of your organization.
Yeah, Drive Yello. Yeah. Sorry,
as I can sort of see.
That wasn't intentional, I promise.
Oh, no.
I didn't also realize. I'm not.
Maybe I need to charge you guys for sponsorship. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I wear the shirts. I'll be honest. I wear the shirts because it's just easy. When you're going to work, you don't have to iron it as much, and you don't have to think about, oh, does this go with one? People will let you off when you're wearing your work shirt. You can just always, you know, wear it with any pants. It's fine.
So tell me, you know, CEO of Drive Yello, congratulations. It's a great step up. I know we had prior conversations about you looking to really mix it up and take it to another level in a way. Obviously, you mentioned the challenges of what we talked about in terms of communication aspects. The culture thing is quite interesting about, you know, be courageous, but do it with honesty. Is that correct? Or integrity?
Yeah, be courageous enough to be honest. Yeah.
Be courageous enough to be honest.
Yeah.
And this role, was it 3 months? It's 3 months now. Is that correct? Or
yeah, I've been in the role 3 months, and I've got a co-CEO. So Steve and I kind of share the CEO role. You know, Steve's much more. He's a visionary. Like, he founded the business. He's got you know, a great product mind and you know, kind of vision for where the business can go. But, you know, I've got a much more operational mind. You know, and I can kind of help scale the business to kind of achieve that vision.
And obviously, I don't want to get you to reveal too much about your organization. So feel free to sort of just conceal what you need to and just prompt me if I need to just sort of take it to another direction. You mentioned operationally that you're quite adept at it, a very skilled individual, Asheesh. What's sort of the biggest challenge you're currently facing right now? It doesn't have to be operational. It could be people. It could be leadership. What's the biggest challenge on your mind right now?
Yeah, I think probably two challenges. You know, I think from a values perspective and having the company live our values, you know, I think there's a, you know, great set of values that the business has come up with, but I don't think well, my observation has been, I don't think we live it every day. So kind of going through an exercise of various little initiatives, but to really, and some of them are really simple, but just to help bring that into the business and help everyone live our values. I think if you're living the values, whether you succeed or not, I think you'll at least be doing the right things to help you on the right path. It's not a guarantee for any sort of success, but I think you can at least feel like, you're doing things the right way and you're giving it 100%. So, going back to, that personal stuff. But I think, if I know my team are operating by the set of values that we've all agreed upon, that will be great. And, that we've really taken a lot of steps over the last couple of months in that. So, and you can see the business kind of operating with much more dynamism to, now that we've started doing some of that stuff. I think the other bit is, the other challenge in the business is, we've got some great clients, some big clients, but, we've kind of won them one by one and kind of largely off Steve's kind of relationship. But Steve's also obviously got the product to build and got a whole other things that he needs to do. So we're in a stage where we're scaling up the sales team. We're sitting on some gold here, but we really need to get out and tell people about it, market it, sell it, get more clients on board, because it's a real problem. Effectively, in a scalable way, helping businesses get their product to consumers faster as e-commerce is growing, is a big issue. So lots of businesses have this problem, and we think we've got one of the best products in the market to help them, but that involves getting out and selling it, right? So scaling the sales team is probably one of the biggest focus that I have at the moment.
And just confirming, Drive Yello handles, sorry, not last mile delivery.
Last mile delivery, yeah.
Handles last mile delivery utilizing gig economy workers. Is that correct? Or
Absolutely. So if you think about retail for since the beginning of time, right, is to get something, take it to a shop and sell it, right? In the last 20 years, that's fundamentally changed, where your shop front is now online. Right. So how do businesses do that? Right. So, big, massive businesses can do it. They can build a legit, a distribution center and, buy hundreds of trucks and ship it. But a business that still has a big, a medium-sized business that has a storefront, how do they also justify having, trucks and a distribution center in addition to their storefront, right? So what we do is allow them to do what they do best, get the stuff to their store, build a website, which everyone will have now, but then help ship that inventory from their store to the house, and do it in a way that's super convenient, right? So if you have one truck that can do 15 deliveries, you got to spend 5 hours on the road driving. But if you had 15 drivers who can go pick it up, you can then tell everyone, okay, we'll give you the orders when you want it. It doesn't all have to magically fit into the route that one car would have to take.
Because you've got that sort of 10, 15 or so sort of workers who can get it just in time, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And hence, as a customer, like what we've talked about before, instead of you having a monster 8-hour window, you can go to the customer, hey, we can be there from 9 to 10, for example. Because
absolutely. It drives me wild. It just drives me absolutely wild that, and this is, you can see the passion why I took this job in the first place, right? It drives me wild that, a supermarket chain, I won't name any because we do work with most of them, will give me a 4-hour window that I have to wait at home, right? And it's like, well, in a day like today where I've had to drop the kids, I've got another meeting at 12 that I've got to go into PIM on 4, right? I can't give you 4 hours, or I'm sitting there stressing, going, what if this delivery turns up when I don't want it, right? Or if I'm not here. So, I'll pay the extra $5 to make sure that it's, there's a 1 hour window between 11 and 12 after we finish. Yeah. So, I couldn't get a delivery now because I don't want to interrupt this podcast, right? Why can't the stores give me a much shorter window and let me do it that way? So, or if you're getting like furniture delivered, they'll say, oh, wait at home for 4 hours and we'll give you a call in the morning. Well, I haven't been able to organize my diary for the whole day because I've been waiting for this guy to call me, right? So
yeah, you can't do anything. That 4 hours is like a window to nothing.
You're in limbo. And
yeah, you're in limbo.
Yeah. So, I think that's where a model like ours. So, I think the delivery driver, and you'll see more Coles and Woolworths trucks on the road, and that will always have a place and always be growing. But our model will grow alongside that.
Interesting. Wow. So I can very much see you're right. I don't want to wait. I don't want a 4 hour window.
No, you don't. You want it now. And, I think if you jump on, some products, you're not getting it today, right? So, I went to buy someone a bottle of champagne. I couldn't get it for 3 days, right? Because all the spots are booked out, right, for the next 2 days, right? So, again, a model like ours, which uses the gig economy, can scale. So just because the slots are filled, because the trucks slots are filled, they can't add another. They can't go buy a new truck.
Yeah, you're limited.
Or roster on another truck, right? There's a capacity. So, our model obviously scales up as the store needs it, and so they can get it tomorrow. Or if today's trucks have left for the day, they can't add on any more for today. But with our model, again, if you buy now, we can send that order straight, or that order goes straight to the store. They pick and pack it, and then our driver can turn up in 20 minutes to come pick it and take it to you. So you can have something with you within an hour. They can have something in an hour. I don't have to wait 2 days, right? So, that thing about the convenience that you're providing to your customer, instead of saying wait 2 days, you can have it to them in an hour, right?
Interesting.
This is something the Iconic did 10 years ago. The Iconic was doing this sort of stuff.
Wow, they utilized the gig economy even then.
They weren't using the gig economy, they were doing it themselves, right? But the idea that I can buy something and have it today. And then that didn't work because it was a bit ahead of their time. And then no one's really come back to it, right? And now, this is something that every business should be taking advantage of. Otherwise, the big players like Amazon, are just going to come in with their big budgets and crush small business here in Australia. And, in the US, most people shop on Amazon, and that means the demise of the local store, the local businesses, all that stuff. So, I think we should embrace stuff. You don't have to do Yellow. There are other people that do similar things. But I think we have to embrace small business if we're going to, not just become one or two shop fronts and
not become some sort of monopoly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard of Amazon Flex.
Yeah.
Is that similar in a way?
So Amazon Flex is modern, similar concepts, I guess.
But they work directly for Amazon.
For the gig economy. So, I have a truck, I can go and, or a van, I can sign up for Amazon Flex, and I can work for Amazon, and I'll go and pick up deliveries from the Amazon distribution center and drive around for a couple of hours, and I can choose my hours, right? So Amazon Flex works for the people that want flexible working arrangements, and that works, but you're only working for Amazon. Our model is different in that we have 1,100 stores across Australia. So if you sign up to Yellow, you will then have jobs available from your local Coles, your local Woolies, your local IGA, those sort of players. So you can see all the jobs that are available, and you can choose, right? And that that probably brings more flexibility, because you can choose smaller runs. You can do one job for 25 minutes, or you can work all day. So you can choose your hours, what days you want to do, but also have more flexibility over locations of where you're taking stuff.
I don't want to say it's the same, but it's in a way, it's like what DoorDash and Uber Eats are doing. But instead of retail store, for example, they're obviously doing restaurants.
Yeah,
so to
yeah,
speak.
so, absolutely. So very, very similar. Probably more similar to Uber and DoorDash, and they play in our space a little bit. But yeah, that is the great flexibility of this model.
And what's interesting is that you might get players like, I think it's called Milk Run or Send, I
Yeah.
believe, who might hop into that space.
Well, not Send because they went bust last week.
Oh, wow. There you go.
But there's, I think, Volley and Milk Run. Look, I think what they do brilliantly is they're educating the market that I want stuff now, right? I need my, who needs
Milk.
groceries in 10 minutes, right? So, but, assuming you do, you can have something delivered to you in 10, 15 minutes, right? So they're educating the market on that, but they're going head to head with Coles and Woolies, right? Because they're offering the products, right? And, that's ambitious with, they've raised money, but, there's a drop in the ocean compared to the money that Coles and Woolies and the like.
And like what you said, Sen's gone. I think
yeah.
what happened to Sen, actually, you're right. I think I read an article in an AFR about how Sen was just burning too much and the margins were just paper thin.
Yeah, exactly. Grocery store margins are notoriously thin. So these guys are trying to have a big cost base because they've got to take shops. And they've all kind of had to,
sort of dark stores or something like that.
Those dark stores. They've got the drivers. They've had to build out, which means you have to warehouse, you have to have inventory, all of that. So they've taken on a very complicated model already, and then tried to add convenience on top of that. Right? It's super difficult. What we're doing is really to enabling the grocery stores and the retailers. So we're not taking them on. We're allowing the retailers to provide that convenience. And Milk Run and Volley and Send are basically educating the market that they want this convenience. But ultimately, Woolies and Coles and those guys can do it cheaper. So ultimately, and
the margins are going to they're going to compress even more.
Yeah. So and realistically, I very rarely need something in the next 10 minutes, right? I probably need something today in the next 3 or 4 hours. When we were in the States, it was awesome. You could at lunchtime jump on Amazon, buy your groceries and have them delivered by 5 p.m. And then, you're
good to go.
Right. And you can, save you the trip to the grocery store on the way home. That's what people are looking for. I don't believe people are looking for something in the next 10, 20 minutes, right? But, but I think these guys are educating the market well, that they can have stuff more conveniently. They don't need to wait 2 days, right? So I think if we can give them something in the next couple of hours, that's good.
The irony is that, like what you said, like my wife and I do the same thing. Every Friday for maybe just half an hour, we go, all right, this is what we need for the next week. There are a plethora of apps that give you that shopping checklist.
Yeah. Cozy is the one that we use.
Oh, Cozy. Interesting. Yeah. It's basically just a list. Is that correct? Or...
Yeah. And it's got a diary attached to it as well. So that's good. A calendar.
So it's interesting, getting back to the whole technology thing, you can really utilize it to save a lot of time, eh?
Yeah.
Wow. And as the sort of co-CEO of Yello, what's the biggest enjoyment that you're currently enjoying? The biggest positive?
I think I've been the two ICs, of a couple of businesses, and I think the CEOs gave me a lot of autonomy to run things as I wanted, but ultimately I was always doing it underneath their vision or kind of having to check in with them a lot and kind of always unsure of, okay, is this really their vision? I think, the last business, the CEO did set the tone, right? And I was kind of, whilst I had a lot of autonomy, his tone was what I had to kind of play to. I think I'm enjoying working to a tone that I kind of set,
you can now really create it in a way that is an extension of you in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a co-CEO, so Steve and I do it jointly, but, I think we're very much on the same page, but it's not, brilliant. He calls a shot and then I execute. It's, we agree on the shots together. So, you know, I think I'm enjoying that, and it's much more of an equal partnership than in other kind of when I've been COO of other businesses.
Interesting. It's because like what you said, because still as the COO, you still need to execute that vision from a CEO, which then filters down to you. But now you can pretty much go, this is what I want to do. Obviously, you have a chat with Steve about it. And away you go. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, I think other businesses have been very dominated by the numbers, and you know, you have to hit numbers, and you know, the numbers are the biggest priority. You know, and you know, to the point where, you know, 99% still was a fail. You know, I think for me, you know, I've always believed much more in the people. You know, invest in the people, keep the people happy. Probably a bit naive that, you know, happy, secure people will, I think more often than not, deliver. So, you know,
sorry, what was that?
Will deliver. So, you know, I think if you can keep the team happy, motivated, and, you know, secure, and, you know, give them some structure around what they need to do and the tools they need, you know, 99 times out of 100, my belief is they'll succeed. And if they don't succeed, it's probably more something that I've done wrong, right? Like if I probably set the pricing wrong, or given them the wrong product, or pitched it wrong, right? I think if you give them the tools and, you know, keep them motivated, they'll deliver for you. So
it's a great approach. As opposed to judging someone straight away, you're actually taking a back step and reflecting. Have I sort of done something wrong?
Yeah, look, I had some time off between my last business and this business, and you know, I think, you know, one of the mistakes that I made previously, and the tone that was set in that organization, was very much having exceptional people. You know, having the right people on the bus was really, you know, a big mantra of, you know, this person's exceptional, this person is, you know, the right person, this person's the wrong person, we need to get them out, we need to get rid of them. And then in my time off, I did a lot of reading and thinking, and, you know, one of the books that I read was a lot about, no, it's not about having the right people, right? It's about getting, you know, and it's not about getting the best out of your people. They're not like an orange that you have to squeeze them out, right? It's about absolutely helping the people perform at their best, right? Help them, you know, make them secure, make them happy, you know, check in on them, care about them as people, and then anyone can succeed if the environment is right? So, and that's really important. And so I think that's the approach that I'm trying to take in my current job. You know, help people, you know, for whatever backstory, whatever's going on in their life. There might be reasons why they're not performing, right? You know, your best salesperson might be having some personal issues. They might be, you know, going through a marriage breakup, whatever that is, right? So how do you show that empathy? How do you lead with empathy to make sure that, you know, the people can thrive, and ultimately if people thrive.
Interesting concept. What book was that?
People get annoyed with me because I talk about this book so much, but it did change my life. It's called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Yeah. Yes. So the example he uses, and you know, it's amazing. You know, he was at a casino in Las Vegas, and you know, a barista was making him coffee, and he was like, this was just, you know, the best customer service experience he ever had. And so he was kind of like, okay, look, why do you like working here? And you know, turns out this guy worked at two casinos, right? He worked, I think this was the Hard Rock, and then the other one he worked at was Caesars, right? And he said, look, at Caesars, you know, I concentrate on keeping my head down, keep myself out of trouble. You know, the management there just, you know, just think you're screwing and stealing. So, you know, you just try and you get in, do your shift and get out. Whereas here, you know, the managers really care, right? The managers check in on you. And so here, you know, I give it a 100%. At Caesars, I just go in there, just get my paycheck and get out, right? And so, you know, Simon's view is, you know, if he had been served by this waiter at Caesars, he would have had a completely different experience than this really positive experience that he had at this at this casino. So, I think that's a really important lesson for us, people that manage people, help your team survive. Don't sit there and think, okay, is this person exceptional? What are they giving me? It's not, how do I give them something to make them better?
Fascinating. Great to learn from you. And just using the bus analogy, is it also very much about putting the person in the right seat?
Yeah, I think, to be clear, I'm not sure I agree with the bus analogy in the first place, right?
Okay.
I think to say, have we got the right people on the bus, is not right, because I think firstly, you've hired them, right? So why are they here, right? So why are you trying to get people off your bus when you allowed them on in the first place, right? So, I really struggle with the bus thing. But, I think it's more, is the bus going in the right direction, right? Have you, as the CEO, are you taking the bus to the right spot that your team can enjoy where it's going, right? Is the temperature right? Are the seats comfortable? All of those things. And then all of a sudden,
good point.
That person is actually enjoying their bus trip, and in a happier environment, they can actually do the right things on the bus. So I'm not sure. Look, I think obviously the realities of HR play into it. Some people let you down. People may not have the skills they need for their role. But yeah, I think absolutely you should be engaging with your team. If they're not happy in their role, if they're not willing, if they don't think they can give 100% in that role, let's find them another role that makes them happier. I think, how do you, I had this example in my last job where, someone was a sales manager, and, she realized actually she didn't love sales. She loved helping people, right? And it was probably one of the most fearful times when I had to go to the CEO and say, hey, I think we've got to move roles. And, luckily he went along with it. But, and then as I understand it, she's absolutely thriving in that other role. And, an approach could have been, well, you signed up for this job. This is your job. Take it out or get out, right? But, I think being able to kind of create a new role for her, and, I think on a personal level, I feel quite close with her. I know how much that meant to her personally, that the business was able to create something else for her to kind of look after.
You're being a human being.
Yeah, and I think that brought, and then, to put business hat on, that buys loyalty, that buys happiness, right? That buys security. And, again, that I'm hopeful has allowed her to thrive and help the business. And actually we got someone else in who did want to be the sales manager and did want to excel in that. And then, I'm sure she's doing much, much better in that role. And you've got, this other person in this other role doing well too.
You mentioned, if you don't mind me asking, you mentioned before that the money factor is not as of a constant pressure right now. Is that correct? Because you're still a private company. Is that correct? Or
yeah, look, I think I think Steve, my co-CEO, kind of buys into this, and he's got another book that he lives by called Fanocracy.
Fanocracy.
Yeah, okay. Fanocracy, which is also a remarkable book if anyone wants to read that. That also focuses on what's important, right? You create fans, right? So you create fans out of your customers, right? So if you're trying to keep your end customers happy, so in our case, we're trying to make the very end person who's ordered it, get them their orders on time, right? Create a fan out of our gig economy community, have them really engaged, loving working for DY and not working, where do I enjoy working more with Drive Yello and not one of the other players, right? So how do we create them as raving fans? Our retailers, how do we create them as not just they're a customer or a partner? How do they become fans of us, right? Like a lunatic, rugby league supporter. Like, how do we get them raving about us in that way? Not just you're my partner, I'm stuck with you. So if we do all those things really well, and we create fans out of our staff, right? And they love working here. They kind of believe in our mission and why we exist, and their careers. are thriving out of it as well. If we do all those things right, and then that creates an environment where, again, 99.9 times out of 100, we create something rewarding for the business and our shareholders, right? But that's the very last thing. But if we do all these other things well, then the output of all those things will be the money. And ultimately, yes, I'm conscious that investors and stuff do need eventually to have some sort of economic reward. But if we're just out there searching to, okay, we have to grow 100% year on year, then great. Like if I decide it's 100, but we achieve 99, is that a failure? Because I could have easily said, I want to achieve 90% growth, right? That's another thing Simon talks about in the Infinite Game. It's just an arbitrary number with an arbitrary time period, right, that you're setting. Yes, there's the financial realities of we've got to set budgets and all those things, right? But who defines, is that successful, right? If you think about weight loss is a similar example, right? If you say, I'm going to lose 10 kilos by Christmas, right? If you only lost 9 kilos or 8 kilos, but you went through all the exercise, you ate right, are you going to actually be in a better position than when you started? Yes, you are, absolutely, right? Your life's going to be in a better state. You're going to be healthier, probably happier as well. So, the same thing with, the pressure around, trying to achieve financial outcomes for the business, right? If we don't hit all our numbers, but, we've grown our driver community, we've grown our retail base, but things have just not, been as quick on the uptake at the moment. If we've done the underlying activity next year, more likely than not, the numbers will come, right? So the numbers will come as long as, and this is a trained accountant.
You create that strong base.
This is a trained accountant telling you the numbers don't matter in some ways, but I think the underlying activity always has to be there to justify a number.
Do you think your approach would be different if you're a publicly listed company, you're working in a publicly listed company, and you need to adhere to that quarterly target?
Yeah, read the book, and absolutely, this change, I think it's called the investor superiority complex, right? So it's like absolutely the in public markets and even in private markets, the supremacy of investors and providing profits and dividends and capital gain to the investor is the dominant force. Is key, but at the same time, I'm probably a bit thick-skinned and a bit stubborn, to be totally honest with you. And I've worked with people who are obsessed with numbers before, and I think I'm probably one of those people that clenches their butt cheeks, goes in, cops a beating for a period, knowing that the underlying stuff will stand me in good stead, because it works the other way, right? I've also been in situations where I know the underlying activity is rubbish, but the numbers have been positive, right? And those are the times where you also need to be not taking all the credit and going, actually, the numbers are good, but what is the underlying thing? We actually missed on these 5 key indicators. So, that means next quarter is actually going to be super tough. So let's be ready for what's coming, because you haven't done the activity this quarter.
So you're saying that you know how to handle that in a way. I suppose I'm curious to understand it. If DY was listed on and had to be critiqued on a quarterly basis, could you still be human to your sales manager, for example, in a hypothetical, who decided that she didn't want to do it anymore and she wasn't performing and her team was not performing? Could you adopt that same mindset of being very human despite the fact that you've got that quarterly target on your head? Could you still be you?
I think I'd be naive to say it would be the same. I don't think it would.
It's a different game, isn't it?
But I think it comes down to you being true to your values and the company values and your own personal values, right? And I think and probably leaning on Steve's book around, fanocracy, also having investors that believe in that, right? So, investors that are looking for, so, if you're out there and you sold yourself to a bunch of hedge funds, right? You know what you're getting. You have to thrive, or if not, you're going to take a bloodbath in your share price, right? That is just the reality. But if you've been careful and brought in investors who are believers in the mission, believe in the long-term mission, then they will give you time. They will write out a quarter, 6 months, 12 months with you to allow you to do that. So, partly, a job like this is to get the right investors who believe in that, and who aren't just in there for a quick buck. So, do you take a convertible note where they're going to make you list in 18 months and put that pressure on yourself, or bring in investors with a 10-year mandate or a 5-year mandate, right? So, who are patient and who can bring those expertise to help you as well, right? So, I think part of it is getting the right investors and being true to that. But then I think
fantastic, buddy.
Yeah, but then I think the other piece is, I think if just because there is pressure coming on you from the outside, do you buckle to it and do you just accept it and say, okay, I've got to make some shitty decisions? No, I think, in a position like this, you're paid to stand up and do the right thing. Will it make it harder to do it? Absolutely. Would it put pressure on me to find that new sales manager more? Yes, it would.
Like what you said, you'd be naive. No, you'd be naive if you didn't think it was going to be different.
Yeah. But I think you still need to try and do the right thing every time. Well, you still have to do the right thing every time, not just try.
Got it. I'm conscious of making sure you get in time for your PMOT meeting at noon. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that with me. Just a final question. We've gone everywhere. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation.
Well, I have. Hopefully your listeners do, I guess.
I think it's fantastic. I'm curious, I think you prepared for this because I did send you this question beforehand. Oh, we've talked everything. We've talked tech. We've talked fatherhood, being a great husband, parenting, work, public markets, private markets. Let's go back to the fatherhood side of things, right?
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give a new dad? And it's not just a dad, right? That dad is also a husband, a best friend, a worker, a leader. What advice would you give him?
Look, I tend to only give advice where I've failed, not on necessarily stuff that I think. So I think investing time in your kids. One of my biggest regrets is my son was born 10 days after he was born. I was running a conference, and I rushed back in to kind of attend the conference and run the conference. When really I in hindsight, that conference in the scheme of life was so unimportant, as opposed to my son's first 10 days of being alive and kind of building that bond with him. But I think that continues through there, right? Like, I think there'll always be an important meeting. There'll always be
another deal to close,
a Slack code, whatever that is. There'll always be the next important thing, making sure you pause, invest the time, and be present when you do it. I think that's super important. And then listening, right? I think asking questions and actually giving them space to give you the reasons why they've done something, or kind of what's going on in their life, as trivial as it sounds. And the first thing my son, when he gets in the car, when I pick him up, how's your day? Good. You get the grunts, same grunts that I probably gave my parents, but we're kind of fighting through that and kind of asking some follow-up questions and really listening to why they've done stuff. And even when they really screw up, right? Listening to, invariably there's some sort of messed up logic in why they've done something. Very, they are people, and they are, they do make decisions based on stuff, and maybe based on ethics you've taught them as well. So, trying to figure out why they've done stuff, listening, being empathetic, and then I think at the end of that, you get a connection, and that's that connection that hopefully you take with you your whole life, with your kids, because invariably they're going to move out, invariably they're going to have their own lives, but you want to have a connection. You don't have to be their best mate, but you have that special relationship and bond.
Fantastic. Asheesh, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, Jeff.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.